Suma, can you summon me back? He asked. He almost sounded like he was in pain. Of course, I said, and quickly cast a spell. I started to make a list of the last things I needed to do before we leave tomorrow, but my train of thought was interrupted when Jake collapsed, bleeding from his stomach. I rushed over to him and discovered that the summoning spell was already beginning to heal his wounds, but that process was slower than my healing spell, so I immediately got to work. What happened? I asked, as I cast my first healing spell on him. I took a wrong turn, he said, and tried to laugh, but he seemed to be in too much pain and winced instead. Off a cliff? I mocked his vagueness. He chuckled, then moaned, then asked me not to make jokes till after he was done bleeding. It took a few moments, but I was able to close all of his frighteningly deep wounds. However, since I healed him after he was summoned and not before, it meant he was thoroughly exhausted. Better? I wondered. He gave a slight nod of his head and a tired moan. Yes, thank you. Goodness. I forgot how tired I'd get out of this, he complained. Better than bleeding to death, though, I said. So how did you get such vicious injuries? His responses were slow and laboured from sleepiness. I was walking home after dinner. I was attacked. They had knives, but I think I won. His tone was low, and his words were meandering. Remembering how much he was bleeding, I questioned, Are you sure? I was able to summon Destiny and Nigis. That saved my life, he lifted his head to say. But I thought magic didn't work in your world, I said, surprised. It doesn't, or didn't at least. Maybe because I spent so much time here, or maybe because I already knew how to use it. I don't know, but I do know that it was the only reason I lived, Jake told me, then slowly put his head back on the ground. Well, we can talk more about this later. You need to rest if you want to recover your strength. We leave tomorrow, I said this to the air as it turns out, because Jake had already fallen asleep on the ground where I summoned him. I landed on his head and pecked him with my beak. Jake, wake up and get cleaned up. You're still covered in blood, I yelled into his ear, jarring him awake. I stood in the shower that the stable uses to clean the animals off, and let the warm water run over me. It was all I could do not to fall asleep. I cleaned the blood off my arms and torso, then washed my hair for good measure. I did all of this with my eyes closed as it was too difficult to open them at the moment. Turning off the water and grabbing a towel I had brought from Earth, I wrapped it around my waist, left the shower, and walked back to my room. Thankfully, the inn was happy to let me put up some privacy curtains around the shower, though there was one incident where a member of the staff flew in to ask if I needed anything. After returning to my room, I got dressed and finally went to bed. Suma healing me always makes me tired, like running for hours and not eating for 2 days after a long night of dancing at a club kind of tired. I blacked out within seconds. When I woke up, the sun was just starting to rise, and I was starving. I knew this would happen, so I set out plenty of food before I went to bed. After eating, I started to feel normal again, and called Suma. Hey, Suma, you awake? I received no answer. Figuring she was still asleep, I walked outside and looked around. The city was quiet, the sun was cresting over the horizon, the sky was turning from night black to ribbons of silver and green, which were starting to fade away and give over to its normal reddish brown. A few Nume were already flying around, and I saw smoke columns begin to dot the city one by one, most likely Nume lighting forges or other sources of fire of some kind. The Nume don't really cook anything, but I have seen a few places around town that would cook small portions of meat for nobles who could afford such luxuries. Today's the day, I said to myself, as I sat in the short blue grass. I had a lot of doubts to be sure. Should I be doing this? Am I doing the right thing? Those kind of thoughts. But I always subdued them the same way. Suma is going, even if I don't. Jake, are you up yet? Suma yawned. Yeah, I'm awake, I responded. Okay, I'll be down in a little while, she said. I didn't say anything back. I was still thinking. I wish I knew what to expect. I wish I could predict what we would encounter, but I didn't. And I couldn't. Suma came down about 20 minutes later and landed on a perch next to me. Nice view, she said. Is there one in your world like this? All the parts that matter, I told her. We sat quietly for a while, not saying anything. We both just wanted to take one last look, I suppose. But eventually, the silence had to end. Are you ready to go?